Hello, people. Jeff Cloud here. Session 5 of Serving Time Successfully, or Successfully Serving Time, whichever way you want to look at it. You'll see in this video I'm jacked back. I've walked a long ways. Today I've gathered some firewood. It's cool here in North Carolina here in mid-March. Last of our probably cold spells. Typically it gets warm from April the 15th onward without having to worry about a fire, but I do firewood. The other thing is gathering a little firewood for a sabbatical I'll have here. I do Sabbaths of Solitude every 4 or 5 weeks. It's where I take off Wednesdays through Saturdays, and I spend time trying to hear from the Lord on what to do about Crossroads Reentry, the organization I lead. Look at things like my marriage, look at things like my family, look at things like my provision or finances, and on and on and on it goes. But I also take time to do things like kayak, and you'll see right behind me here my paddle, one of them, and I got 3 or 4 of those. I got a couple kayaks I carry with me, that kind of thing. And but anyhow, getting ready for that, and I'm a little bit tired from gathering all this stuff, getting around, picking stuff up, and blah, blah, blah. But anyhow, I want to first share with you that earlier in the series, if you've made series 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll remember that I said that I'd like to get in a guy by the name of Rodney Dane, and Rodney hasn't been able to make it, nor have I heard back from him. But I'll share a good principle for living life successfully with you that we can all do. I say this a lot to myself. I don't know what's happened here, but I know the one who knows everything. And the one who knows everything is God. And so basically I just turn it over to him and say, Lord, you take it in whatever direction you want to, and help me just to move on with the next right thing for me to do. For right now, for example, it's been several days. I haven't heard back from Rodney, and I'm hoping he's okay. I'll give him a few more days and maybe reach out, but we never know. Somebody could physically die. Somebody could be in a hospital in a coma. And of course, those would be legit reasons not to reach back out to somebody. But anyhow, be that what it may, Rodney's not going to be with us for this series. I've got to complete it, get this over to Adovo, and then they're going to be launching this in April, as far as we know, of 2026. And just want to share that with you. But what I'm going to do here on this session 5, this is the last one, is I want to talk about the remaining 10 principles that we have that are for serving life, serving time or serving life successfully, because we're all going to serve life. And whether you think about it, we got a sentence that it will end. That's going to be physical death. And of course, believers say as long as Jesus tarries. But the point being that we're all serving life. Many people will be serving time. And of course, these principles are interchangeable. First, I'll share with you a little bit about us at Crossroads Reentry. We are a Christian 501c3, and we believe in 2 types of good news: spiritual good news and physical good news. Let me explain what I mean by that. Those 2 things tie together when we're done right with a Christian organization or even a Christian. And I'll give you an example. There's probably going to be somebody watching us here in California. I mean, hundreds of people may see this, with thousands down the line. And they may go and look at our introduction letter that's part of the tablet stuff when you look under Crossroads Reentry. And let's say they're getting out in 6 months, and they read that introduction letter. It says, write Crossroads Reentry. It gives them the post office box to write and get a home plan before they get out. And let's just say that they're going to Los Angeles, California is where they need their home plan. Okay, they may have not had anybody help them with a place to live before they get out. They didn't know what was going to happen. They've been praying to God, and all of a sudden, they get an introduction letter from us through the tablet, or it could come in from an introduction letter as we mine, M-I-N-E, or extract the data of when people get out in California state prisons. We try to send them 6 months before they get out. Doesn't mean we're going to get everybody, because sometimes they shift prisons, sometimes they're going to hospitals, Sometimes they're under aliases, etc., so on and so forth. So, but I'd say 85% of the people currently in 2026 in California getting out, we send introduction letters 6 months before they get out to them on our end, probably gets to them about 5 months before they get out. But could you imagine that guy sitting there serving, say, 15 years, and the whole time he doesn't know where he's going to go when he gets out? Well, when he gets connected with us, going to Los Angeles, California, there's probably somewhere in the range of 25 to 50 or more places, assuming he's not a sex offender, that he can get to. If he happens to be a sex offender, we can probably go send him 30 or 40 places in California that do take in sex offenders. So the point being that this person goes from not having any hope of where they're going to live to all of a sudden having hope and having real places they can reach out to get into before they get out. That's what we call good news in the physical level. But we don't want it to end there. We want it to end with good news in the spiritual level. And what is that? Good news in the spiritual level starts with bad news in the spiritual level. What's the bad news? We're all sinners. What do you mean by that, Cloud? There's the 10 Commandments, and we've all broke one or more of them. I'll never forget when I got sober back in 1993. One of the first things I did was maybe early 94, I got saved and I started looking at the Bible and asked somebody, where are these 10 Commandments? And they told me, I think Exodus 20. And I go and look and I look at those 10 Commandments and lo and behold, I broke the first one. I put a check beside it. I broke the second one. I got all the way down to the sixth one, thou shalt not murder, and I had to put a question mark. And the reason I did was being a blackout alcoholic, being in 2,000 or so blackouts over the years, from 1971 probably all the way up to 1993. In a couple thousand blackouts, there was many things I had done that I had no clue of what I had done. All right. That being said, I had to put a question mark beside that. Went on, checked the rest. Sure, I broke them, blah, blah, blah. Committed adultery, check. Steal, check. And you get the picture. Covet, bear false witness, da, 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 da. All of those others were checked. But then I would read the Bible about 2 weeks later in the Gospels where Jesus said, if you've ever been angry enough with somebody to kill them, you're just as guilty as if you murdered them. What he was trying to say was, sin is a heart issue. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we do something that actually breaks the commandment, because he's trying to get us to realize we're sinners, and if we're sinners, we need a Savior. That's the good news, that God so loved the world, he sent his son Jesus, who died on a cross, was buried, and resurrected from the grave, proving Jesus the payer of our sin if we believe, and Lord, the one that tells us has the right to tell us what to do in our lives. I call him shot caller, okay? He calls the shot, the Lord does, in my life. He gets to call the shots. I don't want to call the shots. When I do, it isn't pretty. But the point being that believing in his death, burial, resurrection, trusting him as Savior and Lord makes us right with God. We get 1,000 million other promises as Christians, and we move forward. But we at Crossroads believe in those two types of good news, the physical good news and the spiritual good news. So I share that with you to kind of let you know what Crossroads is about. We don't do Bible studies in prisons or church services. There's plenty of that in most prisons. But there's very rarely anybody that can help people get places to live when they get before they get out of the prison. When they get out of the prison, help them with any need when they get out. So that kind of thing shares a little bit with you what we do. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about these last remaining 10 principles on serving time successfully, and here they are. Let's constantly learn to be a better prayer. What does that mean? Pray to God. The Bible promises us if we pray anything according to God's will, he hears us and he grants us what we ask for. But the key there is God's will. And for me, I have to say that's from the Bible, because if I just think I know what God's will is in this mind, whoo, that's a scary place. But if I look in the Bible, for example, and it says God loves a cheerful giver, and I pray, Lord, help me to be a cheerful giver, he answers that prayer, guaranteed. I'm a very cheerful giver. What I mean by that is I give 30 hours or more of my time free to Crossroads Reentry as the executive director. But yet, when I look out there at all the people I've met in my life, I've seen nobody give more time, resources, etc., than I have, and I haven't seen anybody with a more blessed life. Now, that's me, just the personal people that I've seen. And the blessings come in a million different ways. But what I mean by that is, God says it's more blessed to give than it is to receive. And what he's basically saying is it's more blessed to be a giver than it is a getter. When you boil it down, I'm getting close to having connected over the last 4 decades with 250,000 felons and 250,000 people in recovery. And in many cases, parts of those camps, a big part of those camps, are together. For example, somebody that's in recovery, incarcerated, for example. But that's a ton of people to help. And there's nothing in life that I've ever discovered that long term brings joy and floats one's boat, makes one truly happy, than to help people. It's in all of us that when we get to help people, it's like I've seen the most miserable people in my life, including me, when they are getters. In other words, get, and it's all about me. That's the most miserable people I've ever seen and been in my life. On the other hand, the most blessed and joyful are the ones who the givers are. It's just a fact of life. And so it's a principle. But basically, if we learn to be a better prayer, life will get better as well too. So it's real important to get into the Bible, for example, see what the Bible has to say about prayer. And for those of you that go to a church service or have access to a chaplain in prison, for example, they've got what's called concordances. Sometimes that could be in your prison library as well, concordance, biblical concordance or Bible concordance. And you can actually look in there and see where is the word pray used in all of the Bible. It'll tell you, and you write it down or have a chaplain get that to you. Prayer, praying, you get the picture. And so do that and see what you can find. And of course, studying prayer is an amazing thing to see what it gets. Okay, this is second principle, much in life can be gleaned from people who have already been there and done something successfully. So the way to think about that is anytime we get into a new horizon, a new place, something new. Me, for example, 65 years old, I'm now 66. Last year I went on Medicare, and I got on YouTube and I looked at a lot of gurus on YouTube who know a lot about Medicare. And I watched several of them. And of course, when I saw multiple things coming forth from all of them that were saying the same thing, then what I knew is that's the direction I needed to go with Medicare. And if you don't think that's important, listen to what just happened. I was diagnosed about 5 or 6 years ago with a staghorn kidney stone. The way to think about that is inside the kidney there's like a glove, and that glove is empty on the inside. Now when a staghorn kidney stone gets in there, it's like it fills up the glove with almost like calcified oxalate, they call it, basically a kidney stone. And that can create urinary issues, etc. So I had a big one in there, but it won't pass. And the way they used to have to do it was cut you open in the back, actually cut your kidney open and go in and get it. And then recently I had a CT scan as I'm finishing up 5 years cancer-free. So now I'm officially cancer-free from rectal cancer back in 2020, 2021. And they discovered a 2 millimeter kidney stone in my uterus. And what that means is that one could come any day and pass. And if it was to pass, the pain would make somebody go to the emergency room, writhe on the floor, meaning laying down and in total pain. You get the picture there. Well, by picking the right plan, I chose a Medicare supplement instead of Medicare Advantage because I educated myself with people who had already been there and done it successfully. I got the supplement. What the supplement allows me to do is if my doctor and me think I need something, I get it. No questions asked. The insurance company can't deny me. They can't put it off, et cetera, so on and so forth. And what we're going to do is we're going to have surgery here for me in a couple of weeks to where they get that small kidney stone that could create the big problems. And then we're going to get the big one, which we think might be creating some urinary issues. And I'm not currently experiencing any pain with the kidney stones. Now, if I was on a Medicare Advantage plan, they would deny me because I'm not experiencing any pain. And the insurance company could do that. So the point being that it pays handsome dividends to get that principle in our life. Find people who've already been there and done it successfully. Some of the most successful people you're going to see are volunteers who come into prison. You may never know anything in the world about their finances because most of the time somebody that's helping people ain't going to let you know about their finances. Their finances have nothing to do with anything. But they might be multi-millionaires. You'd never know it. I'm not saying they are. They might be. But better than that, the money to the side is, I can tell you this, if they're giving of their time to come into prisons to help the people nobody else wants to help, I guarantee you the good Lord's blessing their socks off. And the blessings will come in a million different ways. Might be a little money, might not be money, but there's nothing like blessings of like grandchildren, children that aren't off the chain, children that grow up and are successful adults. Those are huge blessings. A great wife. We go into old age. Me and my wife be married about 30 years this year. And of course, she'll turn the same age I am here in just a couple months, 65. But the principle, of course, is find people who've already been there and done it successfully. A good example, Michael Jordan in sports. He was under Dean Smith, and he put himself under Dean Smith. What many people don't know about Dean Smith? Dean Smith played college basketball himself. But what he was real good at was he picked up the fundamentals. Dean Smith didn't have a whole bunch of talent when he was back in college, so he didn't ever make it to the NBA. Decent ball player at college level, but he was extremely good at picking up the pointers and teaching people or coaching them the pointers that came from being a successful basketball player. And at one time, he had the most wins of anybody, I think, except Rupp from Kentucky, who coached a gazillion years ago. Next principle I want to talk with you about is, and this is a biggie, respect authority. I'm going to say that again, respect authority. I'll give you an example. At Crossroads, we may have had somewhere, I'm going to say between a dozen and 24 teachers that have been part of us over the years, over the decades. Many of us are still the same. Kyle that you saw in the series, he's been with us for several years. Darryl Brown's been with us all the way back in 3 decades, going back into the 2009 time frame. So the adults, the teens, and now the 20s. So that's 3 decades. And you look at the people who are teachers, they would tell you in a minute that one of the things I tell them is the quickest way to get fired, the quickest way to get kicked out of Crossroads Reentry as a teacher is not respecting authority. For example, if a pod officer in a county jail tells one of my teachers, go down to the other end of the hall and wait for further instructions. Leave the pod, go down to the end of the hall and wait for further instructions. If that teacher balks or asks why, that teacher gets fired. Wow, that's pretty tough. Yep, and the reason being is this. Because that authority may not have time to give you all the details. And if you don't respect authority and it gets us, Crossroads Reentry, kicked out of a prison or a jail, then there's going to be thousands, if not tens of thousands of people down the line that don't get our help. And bigger than that, they don't get the gospel of Jesus Christ. Bingo. Here's how it can affect you being serving time. You may be sitting there thinking, hey man, I got life, no chance of parole whatsoever. And we've seen people with life with no chance of parole get out. You never know what happens. North Carolina, for example, back in COVID, the court system ordered for a decrease of about 25% of inmates to get out. And they also ordered that they couldn't be certain crimes that were committed within a certain time, like violent crimes that were committed in the last 25 years. But violent crime 55 years ago, perfectly all right. And then what they had to do was they were discussing with the authorities who were in the prison, who should we let out? Be a man there, 65 years old, life without parole. He had been respecting authority the last 20 years in prison, volunteering to do duties in the prison, like cooking for the volunteer appreciation meal. Boom, he's out. Hi, why? He respected authority. And this isn't who that I came up with it. God says this. We respect the authorities because he puts the authorities in place. And what he knows is if we can't respect human authority, we can't respect God authority. We'll say that again. It's so important. If we can't respect physical human authority, it's a futile attempt to think that we can respect God's authority. Now, what I tell my teachers also, now, if a staff member told you to do something that you know is plainly in the Bible that says don't do, for example, thou shalt not steal, and that pod officer asks you to go steal something from somebody, then my teachers could balk on that one. And the reason being is if we were trying to be kicked out, I would have peeled it up the ladder, meaning I would go to captain in the jail, sheriff at the jail, and if the sheriff didn't do it, the county commissioners. We'd go up and explain the situation. They told us to steal, and then they kicked us out of the jail because they said we didn't respect them. But that's a different ball game. That would be a rare exception. That's actually never happened where authorities told us something that was in the Bible that told us not to do it. So, but my point being that respecting authority means tons, and it will help you. And that's a heck of a principle, that respect authority. Here's another one. When disturbed or distracted, etc., one can say to oneself, easy does it. That comes from the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I remember when I first got sober, they used to put those little signs, they were about yay big, they put them in the room there, and there was 5 or 6 of them. Easy does it. First things first. And they put them in there as reminders. Some cases they may still be around the nation in some of the rooms, but when I got sober, Lord have mercy, it's 33 years ago. It was less than 60 years since then, since AA had started, and in some cases there were still some people from the original AA meetings, 1935, that were still around going to AA. So it was still kept prominent front row and center. It may not be done now. They may have changed a lot and gotten rid of those things there, but it was basically easy does it. Easy does it. And I say another saying that a buddy of mine gives me. A friend of mine who I actually met through Alcoholics Anonymous was his sponsor, but he basically said, let's not be pole vaulting molehills. And what that means is we have a tendency to blow things out of proportion, we humans do. Overreact. But easy does it helps. Another picture is get the picture of don't go pole vaulting a molehill. Here's a little bitty molehill about that big. Pole vault's way big like that. Don't go pole vaulting a molehill. It's easy just to step easily over the molehill. So I give that one to you, though. Easy does it, just to kind of say it to ourselves and ask the Lord sometimes, Lord, help me to be about easy does it, because I need it, because I can fly off the handle, I can react too quickly, I can do things I'm not supposed to do. Here's a biggie. We reap what we sow. Now here's key. We reap later than we sow, and we'll reap more than we sow. We'll say that again. We reap what we sow, we reap more than we sow, and we'll reap later than we sow. That's the principle of reaping, or a farmer would know it real well. You throw one seed in the ground, plant comes up, 50 oranges come off of it that years later when it matures. Throw one seed in the ground, Back in the day here in North Carolina, when I was running the wildlife, threw one seed in the ground, marijuana plant would come up. Eventually, I never could grow marijuana good, so my plants never got up more than about 6 inches or so. But some people could grow the mess out of them. And of course, then they get bud after bud, seed after seed. You get the picture. But it doesn't matter what the crop is. In life, the principle is we're going to reap what we sow. If we reap violence, if we sow violence, we're going to reap violence. If we sow good, we can reap good. For example, givers sow giving. They reap blessings. They reap God giving things to them. They reap bigger than that. For example, take my surgery. I'm a giver. God's given me the ability to go get that surgery done without having to have a kidney stone passed. Woo, that's good. That's a blessing. Trust me. I've only had 10 seconds of having to pass a kidney stone. That was after they blasted one or some. And, that was excruciating. For 10 minutes. 10 minutes. So I was getting ready to wake the wife up in the middle of the night, go to the emergency room, but it passed within 10 minutes. So I didn't have to do that, number one. And number two, I think what God was doing was showing me how serious passing a kidney stone is, knowing that I would have another one I could get taken care of by the surgery without having to go through having it passed. So I'm looking forward to that, but that's a blessing. And what was it? Here's a giver getting given to by God a special blessing. So we reap what we sow, we reap more than we sow, and we reap after we sow. And that key after we sow means sometimes we can't just sit there and say, oh, I'm going to give somebody something today and then I'm going to get something. It's going to happen today, it'll happen right after it. No, it may not happen right after it. It may need to be that God's trying to work a pattern in somebody's life and not have God thought of as some sort of genie in a bottle. I can rub it and he's going to come out and do what I want him to. That's not God. That's not the God of heaven. No. He wants to more than give us something. He wants us to make us into his image. And how he does that, he can do in a gazillion different ways. And I'll say this, most time it doesn't look like we think it's going to look going into it. But we reap what we sow, and we reap more than we sow. Here's something we can do with people. We hear it all the time. Patient. Be patient with people. It's hard to do. Lord, it's hard to do. It's easy to find the faults of others and be blind to our own faults. But I think one thing that can help us is that when we realize how patient God has been with us, it helps us to extend patience to other people. Let me explain what I mean by that. Teenagers, Lord have mercy. I think all of us as teenagers were the most hard-headed people on the planet. Some people carry that into their 20s, maybe even their 30s. But for the most of us, it was the teenage years. We were the most hard-headed people on the planet. And I joke sometimes that if I was God, every teenager would have been snuffed out, including me. And I'm glad I'm not God. And what I mean by that is patience with hard-headed teenagers just don't have. The good Lord's working on that. He's made it better. But, the point being that even there, if I try to realize how patient God's been with me, he was patient with me through all of my teen years when I didn't give a rip about God, didn't even consider it. Somebody talked to me about God, I didn't want to hear it. I'm going somewhere else. I ain't got time for that. I got to chase the women. I got to smoke the dope. I got to go get the alcohol. We got to party. I got to hit the bar, all that kind of stuff. But, you look at that, that is a big one right there. Realize how patient God has been with us. I mean, it is just amazing how patient he's been. Theoretically, he could have crushed us all out, snuffed us out like a cigarette the first time any of us sinned. And that blows my mind right there. So let's realize how patient God has been with us and try to extend that same grace to others. Another principle. The world has a gazillion critics, but it has very few people who encourage others. I'm going to say that again. The world's got a gazillion, trillion critics, but it's got very few people who encourage others. Let's be people, with God's help, who encourage others. Bringing hope, that encourages others. Telling people they do a good job. Matter of fact, we just got through with Crossroads Reentry this past weekend, having our celebration appreciation event. And what that is we get together funders, board members, teachers, the ones who handle our letters, volunteers. We get them all together at one place. We have a lunch. And of course, Crossroads Reentry pays for the lunch. But we get together and we look at the past year and we celebrate and appreciate what God's done and what God's done through the people of Crossroads Reentry. And we get in there and we take turns sharing what we've seen in our own lives relative to Crossroads Reentry and how God's worked through it and how we've reached people and how we appreciate each other and how we encourage each other that we're all doing good jobs. We're all doing our part to make this great charitable organization do it. And I do most of the talking, maybe 50% of the talking, but I've got to do things like give the numbers of what we've done the past year. And then the vision for what we're going to do or try to do in the future year, God willing. And then between that, though, they take about half the time and go around 5-10 minutes and talk about what they've done. But what they know is they're appreciated. And I try to tell them a gazillion times, you're appreciated. Sometimes I do have to do constructive criticism as a boss. What does that mean? We do performance reviews. But what I always try to do is this, is first, tell them what they do good. And build them up, encourage them. And then I will put in the middle of that, okay, this is an area you can improve upon. And then I'll ask them the question, what can I improve upon as your boss? And then I'll try to always end the performance review with, not only do you do good at what I talked with you about the first, but you do good at these things as well too. And so you see, there's a gazillion critics in the world, but there's only a few who build others up. And if reaping and sowing is true and we build others up, we will be built up. It doesn't necessarily mean people build us up, but it means God builds us up. Somebody's going to build us up. If it's God, it's better probably than people. But the point being is to build others up. Tell them we appreciate what they did. Thank them. It encourages my people with Crossroads Reentry and me when people write us and say thank you for getting a home plan, for example, and then give us a little insight, that kind of thing. Just want to say thank you. I've been praying, and wondering where I was going to go. Here's an answer of God, and now here's the answer to my 6 questions to get my home plan. Those kind of things are very encouraging to the people that work with Crossroads and myself as well. Because what that does is it helps build people up who are doing something good. And encouragement is an amazing thing. I'll give you an example of encouragement. I was a quarterback on the middle school team, 7th and 8th grade. Basically the same team both years. And of course, quarterback would have one more year experience in the 8th grade, but we lost, I think, every game or maybe won one game in the 7th grade. And we had a coach that beat us down. And we had bull in the ring. If anybody knows what that is, having played football back in the day, basically where you get 4 lines going and he calls numbers and You get hit blindside many times. 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, boom, and people coming at you 4 different directions. They get to hit you. Bam. And the dumb thing he did, in my opinion, was he put his quarterback in there. So we'd go to the first game, we'd beat up and everything else, and of course people were killing us. The second coach the next year in the 8th grade didn't do that. He encouraged us. And he would tell running back, you're doing a great job there. Now you could improve by doing this, but you keep doing that. And by the way, you're doing a good job on that blocking. And I don't even see a way that you need to, when you block for the other running back there, what you need to do. You're doing such a good job. But do that improvement, and man, you're doing a good job. We're going to win some games because of you. And you kept seeing that encouragement, and that team did not lose a game. So 7th grade, possibly lost all of them, maybe won one. 8th grade, we didn't lose a game. What was the difference? 7th grade, beat up coach, condemned coach, critical coach. 8th grade, build up, encouraging, that kind of deal. So we can be an encourager, or we can choose to be one of the gazillions of people in the world that complain. So Lord, help us to not complain, but rather to encourage people. Here's another principle. Success takes work. Success takes work. Success doesn't just happen, boom, there it is. For example, a gazillion New York playground basketball players were more talented than Michael Jordan, but none of them made it to the top of the NBA because they didn't want to do the work of going and learning different things from a coach, going through the college system, learning this principle about basketball, that principle about basketball, this principle, blah, 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 blah. They did it their way. They never made it to the NBA, never made it to the level that Michael Jordan did. But success takes work. I fully believe we of Crossroads Reentry are the best reentry organization in the world. But let me tell you about the work that's going on behind that. Just take one state. Let's make it New York. All right. We have home plans for counties in New York, probably a quarter of the counties, 1/4 of the counties. Each one of those counties took about, on average, 20 hours to get the home plan information together for. So let's just say there's 15 counties that we got home plans for in New York. That's 300 man hours, meaning one person could work 7.5 weeks full time to get those home plans done. But here's where they pay dividends. Down the line, thousands, if not tens of thousands of inmates from New York have already gotten home plans from us. Boom, success. To our knowledge, nobody on the planet Earth has taken the time to generate home plans at that level. Boom. Success takes work. Joe Gibbs, 6 or 7 NASCAR championships here. His shop's a half a mile from here. I've flown on his jet with him down to, we went to Nash Correctional several years ago, but he's got 600 employees, and they work their butts off. Sometimes during the spring, when I can put my windows up and upstairs and I'm letting a little cool air come in, running the whole house fan, don't need to run the air conditioner yet, it's 80 degrees outside. I can suck in some cool air in the evening, suck in some cool air in the mornings. I'll hear his dyno people. Dyno is kind of an all those shop term where they're doing a dyno on the motors over there, and they're getting them things ready for Talladega, Alabama, or for Daytona. And when they're doing that, you hear that, And sometimes I hear it 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the evenings. Sometimes as early as 7 o'clock in the morning. I think legally they can't be making too much noise after 10 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock before 7 o'clock in the morning. And sometimes they do certain things on the inside where it's muted in a sound insulated room or whatever the case is. But they work. They got somebody working there around the clock. Guards, night watchmen, etc., so on and so forth. But during the day, they got a ton of people working there getting those cars ready, 600 of them. They got 4 racing teams, I think it is. They win another NASCAR championship about every 3rd or 4th year on average. And so they do it by working hard. They don't just sit around and go, oh, great motor is going to fall out of the sky, or we're going to get a great talented driver here and he doesn't need to do anything. He just got there and drive the car and win all the races. He doesn't have to take care of himself. He can get fat. He can eat cheeseburgers. No, he can't fit in the car. He puts too much weight in the car. On and on it goes. And there's all kinds of advantages. But success takes work. Here's one we could all improve on. Quit trying to correct everybody. Lord have mercy. There is a parable in the Bible where Jesus goes, he tells a 3-step process. I think it's Matthew 7, but basically he says, condemn not. What that means, don't judge not or look down on people or tear them down. And when he's saying that, he's talking about setting the stage for when we try to correct somebody. Don't tear them down. Don't beat them down. Second thing is he will say, you've got a log in your own eye. Don't worry about the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye or another person's eye. So big old log in our eye, don't worry about somebody's speck of sawdust in their eye. Get that log out of your own eye. Now, how that might be. One alcoholic looking at another alcoholic, cutting him down. Man, you're an alcoholic. No, it'd be kind of like, why don't you get your own alcoholism out of your own eye? And then, for example, if you go to A, you may say, hey, this is a great way to help others get rid of alcoholism, is just wait for them to come to A and share with them what worked for you. Boom. That's a good way to not condemn them, tear them down, beat them down, you're a bad alcoholic, blah, 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 blah. But the third thing that Jesus said was this: don't cast your pearls before swine. And all 3 of those are in the context. What Jesus is talking about is trying to correct other people. Now, sometimes correction is up under our authority. For example, I have to correct the people of Crossroads when they do wrong. The reason being is if they do the wrong thing, get us kicked out of a prison or jail, 10,000 other people aren't going to get the help they need. There's times for correction when we are the authority under God that has to do the correction, and the boss man has to do the correction in an organization, the head honcho, the CEO, the executive director, whatever. But it's a service, and good leaders don't like correcting, but we do it. And not like we want to look out there and we got to correct everybody. We don't like doing it, prefer not to do it. Would love for all the employees to do what they're supposed to do. All the volunteers do what they're supposed to. But correction's part of what we have to do. So Jesus is giving this 3-step process. Don't tear them down, condemn them, judge them, be better than them. Second step is get the log out of our own eye before we worry about a speck of sawdust in another one's. But the third one that he does is this: don't cast your pearls before swine. That's where they get the word pearls of wisdom. So in other words, don't try to correct somebody that's uncorrectable. Let them go. Life will correct them. God will correct them. You better believe it. But remember that we don't have to correct people unless they're under our authority. We can pray for them. And then we got to realize that just like Jesus said, that third category, he said, don't cast your pearls before swine or they'll turn and tear you to pieces. So he's basically saying the swine would tear you to pieces. And so those of us that tried to correct people who are uncorrectable know they turn and tear us to pieces with their mouths. You son of a biscuit eater. You maternal fornicator. You anus hole. And that was A-N-U-S. I try to use the right words because I've used the wrong ones back in the past enough. But be careful on correcting people. And want to get to the last little tidbit of success that we've seen in prisons. People serving time. I want to recommend, there's a group called Rock of Ages Ministry. Rock of Ages Ministry. And I've been doing prisons now in 4 decades, going all the way back to 1994. So the 90s, the alt-alts, the teens, and now the 20s. And I can't tell you how many dozens, if not hundreds, of inmates have talked to me about, Mr. Cloud, I get the Rock of Ages ministry stuff. And they reach out to them. So I firmly believe, with all of these different inmates telling me that they do good stuff there at Rock of Ages Ministry, I suggest, if you will, reach out and ask them what they can share with you. Their address is Post Office Box 2308, Cleveland, Tennessee 37320. And I'll say that 2 or 3 more times here slowly. Post Office Box 2308, Cleveland, like Cleveland, Ohio, but this is Tennessee. The abbreviation for Tennessee is TN, capital T, capital N, 37320. Again, that's Post Office Box 2308, Cleveland, Tennessee 37320. If you haven't got a pen right now, put it on pause, and I will say it one more time, and you'll be able to get it with your pen. So go get your pen, put it on pause. I'm going to say it one more time. Rock of Ages Ministry, Post Office Box 2308, Cleveland, Tennessee, zip code 37320. Write those folks and see what they might have for you. But it's got to be good stuff for me to have heard it from many, many different inmates in many, many different prisons and jails. Now, with that being said, we conclude our time together here. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you've enjoyed the 5 sessions of serving time successfully. Use these principles. If you want a copy of them, write us. They're on one sheet, one side. I've used this one, of course, for the crew to pick ones out that they'd like to talk with, as we did sessions 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I covered the last 10 or so of them in session 5. But feel free to write us and just put in there, if this is what you want, is a hard copy, meaning a single sheet of them. Then just simply write us at Crossroads Reentry. Go look at the intro letter, Crossroads Reentry, on your tablet. You'll get the mailing address for Crossroads Reentry. Now remember, we're not Rock of Ages that I just gave you, but you'll get the address for Crossroads Reentry and write us in Huntersville, North Carolina, and we will get you a copy of Serving Time Successfully. Well, with that being said, I like to end these series with this. We've been blessed. Now let's go be a blessing.